Welcome everyone to the council meeting of the 29th of November 2022, which I now declare open. I'd like to extend a warm welcome to members of the public in the gallery who have joined us tonight, as well as those watching from home via our live stream. The video recording for this meeting will also be available on our website as well as the live stream, so attendees in the gallery are advised that their presence may be recorded. I also ask that mobile phones be switched to silent mode during the meeting. On behalf of Moonee Valley City Council, I respectfully acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which Moonee Valley is located, the Wurundjeri Woiwurrung people of the Kulin Nation, and we pay respects to their spirits, ancestors, community members and elders past, present and emerging, and also extend this respect to other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples. We now move on to item 2 on the agenda, apologies and leave of absence. Councillors, I've received Councillor Hodgson's apology for tonight's meeting, and I note that all other councillors are in attendance. On to item 3. Councillors, can I please have a mover and seconder that the minutes from the council meeting held on the 15th of November 2022 be confirmed? Councillors, do I have a mover? Councillor Isa, and a seconder, Councillor Byrne. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is carried unanimously. On to item 4, declarations of conflicts of interest. Does any councillor have a conflict of interest in any item on the agenda this evening? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to declare a general conflict of interest on item 9.12, the draft Community Facilities Management Plan, for reasons disclosed to the CEO in writing prior to this meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Are there any other conflicts of interest? No? We'll move on to item 5, presentations. Councillors, do we have any presentations tonight? I understand we have a few. Councillor Adams.
I do, thank you, Mayor. I've got 3 presentations. The first one is I'd like to update our community on some work we've done in the advocacy space for the Windy Hill Precinct development. On the 26th of October 2022, my fellow Buckley Ward colleague, Councillor Nation and myself joined the Mayor of the day, Councillor Byrne, for a day of meetings in Canberra, advocating for funds to go towards community outcomes at the Windy Hill Precinct in Essendon. We were joined by Natalie Wood, who is the Essendon Football Club's AFLW head coach, Kate O'Sullivan, who is a director, and Brenton Humphreys, who is the Chief Strategy Officer at the Essendon Football Club. We had some very productive and worthwhile meetings with Bill Shorten, Annika Wells' office, Richard Miles, who popped in for a short moment while we met with his advisors, and Senator Raph Cicconi's advisor. It was a very busy, quick day trip and really great to meet with so many officials in the one day. This is a work in progress, and I'm really happy that this project holds a high priority in our advocacy work, and I look forward to more meaningful conversations to help progress this along. The other presentations that I wanted to make I'd like to talk about 2 events that Council held on Sunday, the Groovy Sunday Art Market held at Queen's Park and Festable at Crown Street Stables. The Groovy Sunday Art Market was organised by Valley Youth and featured young makers who sell jewellery, painting, scrunchies, badges, greeting cards and more. There were free activities including face painting, paper flower, crown making and badge making. This event was planned by young people in Moonee Valley City Council's Avenue Productions group and funded through the Freezer program, a Victorian government initiative. It was a wonderful occasion, and my daughter and I loved seeing the talent amongst our young people. Festable was the second event. Festable was held to mark International Day of People with Disability, a United Nations observed day that occurs every year on the 3rd of December. Festable celebrates the diversity of our community, a commitment in our strategic plan MV 2040. First Able was a day for everyone in Moonee Valley, not just people with disabilities, but also their families, carers and friends, in a day of music, dance, art, sport, inspiration and inclusion. Councillor Tyson, Councillor Isa, Helen and I enjoyed a dance performance from Leap Into Dance, a silent disco from Guru Doo Doo Productions, a barbecue by Valley Carers and more. First Able aims to increase public awareness, understanding and acceptance of people with disabilities, which in Australia is 1 in 6 people. The theme for this year's International Day of People with Disability is transformative solutions for inclusive development, the role of innovation in fueling an accessible and equitable world. Thank you to all of the community members who attended this wonderful celebration. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adams, and I appreciated your brave attempts to get me to dance. Did you say you had 3?
That was 3.
3, sorry, thank you. Any other presentations from councillors? Councillor Isa.
Thank you. I'd like to present briefly on the 16 days of action to end violence against women and girls, which is the reason that we're wearing orange ribbons this evening. The 16 Days of Action is an international campaign aiming to end gender-based violence around the world. Violence against women is any act of gender-based violence that causes or could cause physical, sexual, psychological or financial harm or suffering. Violence in all its forms has devastating lasting impacts. Victoria's Respect Women, Call It Out campaign encourages Victorians to call out sexism, sexual harassment and disrespect towards women. This year's campaign also talks about the range of ways in which we can respond to bad behaviour and disrespect, depending on the context we're in and the level of confidence. One option is to diffuse, to make light-hearted comments, to check in and see if the target is okay, to call it out, declare the statement or behaviour offensive and explain why it's harmful, and to report incidents through appropriate systems. Last Friday, council staff and I joined hundreds of Victorians, all in orange, to walk to end violence against women and girls. And you can find out more on council's website about the campaign and events. Thanks.
Thanks, thanks, Councillor Isa. And I'll just take a second to provide one presentation. So thanks to Justin Navis, John Bates and volunteers from Essendon SES for briefing Councillor Isa, myself and our CEO on the recent Maribyrnong floods last night. We held the briefing at Windy Hill, and thanks to Essendon Football Club for their contribution during the floods and ongoing support to our community. We appreciated the time spent to provide learnings, feedback and hindsight on what we can do to continue work between local, state and federal governments and what went well and what could be improved on next time. Thank you. Are there any other presentations? Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. So, similar to Councillor Byrne and Councillor Adams, for the purpose of our policy, I also need to provide an update regarding our advocacy trip. Obviously, both councillors have spoken about the attendance and the purpose, and I guess rather than repeating what they've said, I just wanted to make a note that advocacy trips aren't something that we've done a lot of over the 10 years I've been here on council, and I think there's probably been a hesitation to have any sort of spend, as small as it may be, to travel to meet someone to ask them for something. I think they're definitely in the first probably 2 terms I was on council, it was very much frowned upon for the Mayor of the day to get on a plane anywhere. The reality is, a lot of the time you're asking, the people that you're asking for investment in council facilities or council projects, people who are important and people who are extremely busy and busier even than us. So I just wanted to stress the importance that if we do have projects that we believe are important, like the Windy Hill project is, and it's part of our advocacy strategy, then jumping on a plane or going into the city to ask for funding, ask for support, ask for even just not financial support, but just vocal public support, I think is really important. The trip to Canberra was extremely beneficial, and I think it opened It opened up the eyes, hopefully, of Minister Shorten that it's an important project for us, but also the meeting with the Deputy Prime Minister Richard Marles's office, I think, was really important because we'd briefed his advisors probably for 5 minutes on the project, and the Deputy Prime Minister walked in, asked a few questions, as he probably would for any meeting, and then as soon as he saw the mock-up, the visual of what Windy Hill could look like, his eyes lit up, and he was like, "Oh, Windy Hill!" And then he told a couple of anecdotes, and it was quite good, because if we hadn't have had that meeting and we weren't there with our presentation with Nat Wood, the female coach, who 3 times we heard her story about growing up and playing football, and each time it got more and more moving. If we didn't have her there as well, presenting to these people of influence, I don't think it wouldn't have had that same penetration and that same messaging. So I would reiterate that for the price of an airfare or a cab into the city or wherever it may be, it's something we need to do more of, and particularly when federal and state governments are doing their budget or there's future elections coming up, we need to keep asking and to get the investment in projects we want. Hopefully that suffices for the purpose of the policy in presenting a report, but I just wanted to make that point about the importance of advocacy. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. I've got one additional one, some good news, I think. Council's Incinerator Gallery has recently received a bequest from the estate of the late Val Gwendolyn King. Val was a long-time resident of Essendon and the art teacher at a local school. I didn't have the opportunity to know Val personally, but one of the many tributes tells us what a wonderful person she was. And a quote from someone who knew her, that she had artistic talent, creativity and a sense of fun and kindness in spades, qualities admired by her friends and the students she inspired. So on behalf of Moonee Valley City Council, I thank Val and her family for her generosity and contribution to the arts. Funds from her estate are solely for the Incinerator Gallery, and we wish her family all the best for a wonderful life. Thank you. On to item 6, petitions and joint letters. No petitions and joint letters have been received. Councillors, do we have any petitions or joint letters tonight? No. Now on to item 7, public question time, and I understand that we have received no pre-submitted questions this evening. So on to item 8, reports from delegates. Councillors, are there any report backs from yourselves as delegates? No. We'll now move on to item 9, reports, and 9.1 is 24 to 28 Gladstone Street, Moonee Ponds, lot 1 PS 313274R, construction of a multi-storey building and a reduction in car parking requirements. Amendment. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
Mayor, I've got a small amendment to the officer's recommendation. Would it be okay if I just move it in the form of the officer's recommendation with some amended words?
Yep.
So to amend the preamble to read that Council resolves to issue a planning permit in relation to planning permit application number MV/493/2016/A at 24 to 28 Gladstone Street, Moonee Ponds, Lot 1 PS 313274R in brackets, for the construction of a multi-storey building, a reduction in the car parking requirements for shops and more than the maximum parking provision for dwellings in accordance with the following conditions, and then striking condition C and condition I, and renumbering the other, 1C and 1I, and renumbering the other parts of condition I appropriately.
Yep. Are councillors aware of what's been moved? Yep. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bedio. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks. This is a Section 72 amendment to an existing permit for dwellings on top of a car park that currently has just over 400 car parks in it. The dwelling changes are really quite pleasing because that moves from predominantly one bedroom dwellings to 4 bedroom and 3 bedroom dwellings, which is a really welcome addition. We don't often see the apartments of that size in such numbers, and particularly welcome centrally located in MPAC. So that's a really pleasing amendment. What it does lead to, though, is that the MPAC planning scheme sets reduced parking rates for all new developments, and it means that in moving from the 1 bedroom to the 3 bedroom to the larger dwellings, the car parking rate stays at 1. So the application to this site does seem the application of this policy to this particular site, however, seems somewhat of a low impact given that these dwellings are located on top of 400 car parks. So it's a reduction of 20 car parks, 5% of the 400 sitting beneath it. So I understand the intention of the planning recommendation was to provide some flexibility with the use of the words where possible. My feeling was that this actually creates some ambiguity rather than flexibility and creates something that it's not clear what is to be enforced there, I think. So I'm more comfortable with just striking that and acknowledging that this particular reduction that's in keeping with the reduction that was proposed to be in keeping with the planning scheme is probably not really necessary in this particular application. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Bedio?
Thanks, Mayor. I don't have a lot more to add other than I agree with Councillor Isa that the condition's quite ambiguous, and I'm happy to delete that particular condition, but also, as Councillor Isa said, I don't know many 3-bedroom houses that only have one car between the people who dwell in that property, and my concern is that the occupants would end up just parking on the street, which would just add to the current lack of parking in MPAC in any case. So if they're able to provide 2 car parks for such large properties, I think it's a good idea. Other than that, I think it's a good development. I am curious that it's a Section 72. In my mind, it's quite a different development to what's currently there, and I probably would have preferred it be submitted as a new permit application as opposed to an amendment to what is a car park, but nevertheless I still think it's a good development and I'm happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Adams, Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Isa, Councillor Nation, Councillor Tyson. All those opposed? Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sypek. I declare that motion carried. On to item 9.2, 59 Rose Street, Essendon, Lot 1 on Title Plan 404840P, construction of a multi-level building and reduction in car parking requirements. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Sharp, Councillor Nation. Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Sharp. Councillor Nation, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. This is another Section 72 amendment as per the previous report, although probably not as substantial. It is a change from a 2017 planning permit that was issued, and the main changes are the makeup of what's contained within the development. So it was a smaller commercial space, 103 square metres and 6 apartments. The Section 72 amendment request is to reduce it from 6 down to 1 dwelling, but an increase in the commercial floor space from 103 square metres to 540 square metres. So in essence, more commercial space, less residential space. I don't think these changes are detrimental. I think it's good that a previously accepted or a previously approved permit is adapted for the particular needs, given it's 5 years now since the development was first approved. The increase in commercial floor space I see as a positive. We really want to continue to see our suburban shopping strips like Rose Street thriving. The reduction in dwellings may be a result of the current market at the time and the increase in residential dwellings over on Russell Street. There are a few changes with the car parking requirements. So originally I think there was a waiver of 6 and that is increased. I would note that similar to the 881 Mount Alexander Road application we had last meeting, I'm not concerned about the reduction in car parking because it is something that we need to continue to encourage, is less driving and less vehicle movements, particularly close to our transport nodes, and we know Essendon Station, Rose Street is very much well serviced with bus, tram and train. So all in all, I actually think that these changes are a positive. The dwelling does look quite nice as well on top, and it is changing what would have been originally a residential dwelling to continue that commercial linkage throughout Rose Street. So happy to commend this and happy with the changes as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Sharp.
Nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. With this Section 72 amendment, really happy with the change to more commercial spaces. I think Rose Street is the perfect place for offices and we don't have enough of them in this area. I just don't think I can support this one. I actually don't like the decrease in car parking. I think, I understand it's on a train line and there's plenty of public transport, but the parking around Rose Street is already a nightmare. And I just think we should have at least one car space per office space, because the reality is that people do drive. Also not in favour of the height increase given the 0 setbacks at the front of the building. The already approved permit has allowed this, and in my opinion it's a poor design outcome for streetscape amenity and the interface with the public realm, and also not in favour of the decrease in setbacks. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? As there was opposition, Councillor Nation, no? Thank you. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Nation, Councillor Sypek, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Tyson. All those against? Councillor Adams, Councillor Isa. I declare that motion carried. On to item 9.3, Draft Reconciliation Policy Statement of Commitment and Draft Bagaroo-Jering Reconciliation Plan 2022/25. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Adams.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, please, Mayor.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Nation. Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. This is a truly significant step forward for Moonee Valley City Council on a meaningful reconciliation journey with traditional owners, the Wurundjeri Wurrung people, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples in our municipality. There is years of work sitting behind this plan and policy, and I'm so grateful to the members of the Reconciliation Committee for putting in the work and thinking and cultural expertise to make this such a groundbreaking plan. The first generation of reconciliation action plans focused on listening and learning and started organisations like Moonee Valley on a journey to understand and acknowledge how colonisation and the past acts of various levels of government had resulted in trauma and loss for our first Australians through land dispossession, child removal and other interventionist government policies. This second generation reconciliation plan moves a big step forward on this journey into the territory of genuine partnership and self-determination. Self-determination is both incredibly simple and incredibly complex, but at its core it is about the right for Aboriginal people to participate in decisions to determine their own social, economic and cultural futures. There is a slogan used in the community-controlled sector which sums it up nicely: nothing about us without us. Our plan includes principles of respect, trust, participation and resourcing, all of which are critical for us to move towards achieving self-determination in practice. We put this out to the community for consultation as this is a journey we need to bring the community along with us on. The process to get here in the delivery of our last reconciliation action plan and the development of this plan has already begun that. We hold the annual Bunjul's Maroon Healing Ceremony on January 26 and celebrations during NAIDOC Week and Wurundjeri Week. And the development of this plan has been informed by yarning circles at some of our major community events to start those conversations on learning from each other and journeying together. Once this comes back to us for final endorsement, the real work for Moonee Valley starts. The plan lays out some wonderful practical actions and areas for us to work on to build on the already strong partnership we have with the Wurundjeri Wurrung and First Peoples in Moonee Valley and continue to nurture and strengthen it. Hopefully we can explore new innovative ways to put self-determination and shared decision-making into practice. We have an incredibly mature plan here and a chance to lead the way in how local government can be at the forefront of systemic change in the space of reconciliation. Thank you.
Councillor Nation.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I'll reiterate the importance of what Councillor Adams has said in moving the motion. And just want to note that our council has, for a time that predates my period on council, has always put reconciliation at the forefront, be it through the 2010 to 14 Reconciliation Action Plan, the 2016-18 Reconciliation Plan, our commitment, a statement of commitment in 2018, and now this 2022 to 25 plan. I just want to touch on and thank the Reconciliation Working Group that was established in July 2019. They've met at least 15 times to get this reconciliation plan and policy and statement of commitment to a point that it is now that we get to put it out for public consultation. Those working group members are Wurundjeri Wurrung elders Auntie Diane Kerr and Auntie Gail Smith, Gutamara elder and Moonee Valley resident Uncle Jim Berg, Reconciliation Victoria CEO and Moonee Valley resident Diana David. We do note that since Diana stepped down from the role of CEO, Nicole Findlay has taken her place on the working group. Karen Ingram, who is formerly of Co-Health, Joan Beckwith, Moonee Valley resident and reconciliation advocate, and of course our very own council's First Peoples reconciliation lead Samantha Buckley, who I think has been with us on council for most of my 10 years here and has really ensured that we've been at the forefront with our reconciliation journey. So would commend this this policy to our residents. It's the draft, and I do look forward to hearing the commentary from our community, because ultimately they will be on the journey with us as an organisation. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak to this motion? Councillor Isa.
Thanks, Mayor. Every time I listen to Auntie Diane, Auntie Gail, Uncle Jim and Uncle Bill, I feel so indebted for their open hearts. They're so gracious and generous with their time and patience and efforts towards reconciliation, and they don't need to be. The pain and trauma of cultural loss and dispossession, slavery, stolen children, ongoing racism and abuse, they have every right to shun reconciliation, but they don't. They constantly allow us to make mistakes and to clumsily work towards a pretty compromised justice and sharing, and it is truly humbling. Reconciliation means repair. It's how do we repair past harms? This plan sets out ways that we can commit to finding new ways of sharing country, sharing decision making, and sharing a positive future together, shoulder and shoulder together. It sets out changes to allow for healing, self-determination, storytelling, culture and history, land management, and importantly, prioritising the voices of local Aboriginal community members. We are deeply grateful to the members of the Moonee Valley Reconciliation Working Group. Councillor Nations acknowledged them just now for their generous willingness to commit so much time to helping us as a council strengthen our relationship with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. I encourage everyone to read the plan, to provide feedback and learn about the actions that we can take. And I'd also like to acknowledge that Councillor Hodgson isn't here tonight, and I know how much this work means to her and the work that she's put in at the councillor level, and I'd like to acknowledge that. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isaac. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I concur with everything what my colleagues have said tonight. It's great to hear that we're going down this path, but we've got to look at who actually set us down this path. And in the last council that we had here, I really want to acknowledge Councillor Jim Cusack, Councillor Nicole Marshall, and also Councillor Cam Nation, who really drove this, who really drove the new Flemington hub, who really drove the reconciliation. So we didn't just come up with this overnight. This was started many, many years ago, and it needed some brave souls to put it forward. And I just want to acknowledge the two former councillors and the current councillor who set Moonee Valley down this path, and it's a great achievement, and I take my hat off to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak? No? In that case, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. We're now on to item 9.4, endorsement of the name Jering Flemington Hub for the new community hub at Debney's Park, Flemington. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isaac.
Move the officer's recommendation. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Nation. Councillor Isaac.
Look, I'd really like to thank the 270 people who responded to the survey that we had out to help choose the new name for the community hub in Flemington. And by a slim margin, the most popular name was Jering Flemington Hub, with people commenting that the name represents the past, current and future users of the land, space and the building in its previous and new form, that Jering encompasses how our community will feel when sharing the space, and that the name is simple and unifying. It's obviously very fitting that after endorsing our draft reconciliation action plan this evening that we're approving, sorry, I'm tongue-tied this evening, we are approving our first Indigenous place name for a new facility. This will be the first of many names enacting our commitment to reconciliation. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Nation.
Not much more to add other than I am glad that the Jering Flemington Hub was the option the community went with. I do think it's important when we are naming council facilities to also include in the names a little bit more of a descriptive word to ensure that it's that we're aware of what the place actually is. So look, even if the former had Nagal Jering Flemington got up, it would have been nice to put hub on the end as well. I just do think it's important that names, as well as recognising the history of the place, they also have a descriptor in there to make them easy to understand and for people to, at first glance, to understand what the particular building is. So yes, look forward to whenever, Mayor, you're unveiling that plaque of the Gering Flemington Hub, to be down there on site watching you cut that ribbon. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I drive past this place 5 days a week. Every day I go to work, I drive past this place. And every time I drive past it, I have a little smirk to my right-hand side thinking, wow, what a great project. But now, this week, when I saw what the agenda was going to be, I've actually now got a smile on my face when I go past. And you know why? Because our first Aboriginal named facility is at the start of our city, right near Melbourne. It's the entrance, it's the gateway to Moonee Valley. How good is that? How nice have we got the first Aboriginal facility in Moonee Valley at the start of our city where everyone from Melbourne can see it? Beautiful.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Bedio.
Thank you, Mayor, through you. I'm happy to support. I think this is the right decision for the name. I will say that it is a little bit disappointing, the numbers in terms of responses we had. From rough math, it's 0.002% of our total population in Moonee Valley, so it would be good if we could work on trying to get a little bit deeper in our consultation with these sorts of things, because they are really important, and if it only won by a small margin, statistically we probably don't actually have enough sample size to work out what the community wanted. But nevertheless, I'm happy with this decision, and I think it's the right name, so happy to support.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Any other councillor? No? As there hasn't been any opposition to the motion, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. We're now on to item 9.5, final Riverside Sport and Recreation Precinct Plan. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with an additional point C that reads, acknowledging the potential for increasing impacts from flooding and the significant flooding event of October 2022, add a preface to the precinct plan emphasising the importance of the green and resilient planning principle, flood resilience including capability to recover from inundation to be incorporated into design for structures, infrastructure and all other precinct proposals, and any further guidance on how this might be achieved.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Is there a seconder? Councillor Byrne. Councillor Isa.
This precinct plan has been out for consultation, and people have made some really helpful feedback such that the principles have been beefed up to include some important points around resilience, sustainability, safety and enhancing the natural environment of the area. We're at the point now where we're adopting this precinct plan, and it has an important role in the ongoing expression of interest and contracts around the management of the precinct. But in the interim, we've of course had this really significant flooding event, which really showed us that this precinct operates entirely on a floodplain. And we've always known that, and obviously in 1974 and in 1993, residents and locals felt those impacts, but we've witnessed that and felt that just within the last 6 weeks. So I do think that we can, and we really need to acknowledge that the existence of this precinct within this floodplain. And I acknowledge that some updates have been made to the plan to incorporate some further references to the likelihood of inundation and the need for any infrastructure to really respond to that. But as we've seen, the cleanup is ongoing and facilities are still closed. The flood impacts on this area are immense, and we can't be in denial about that. There's going to be increased likelihood of flooding, and we need to be very real and very honest. So we do need to plan, design, mitigate and ensure for future scenarios. And that may change the way in which this area is treated in the upcoming infrastructure design work and projects that are taken on by any prospective managers. But we can't have any illusions about what that might mean, and we do have a responsibility to address it. Hence, I think the need for some additional words at the beginning of this plan that really highlight that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Isa. Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. This is obviously really exciting that this has come to us. Obviously, the timing isn't fantastic considering, as Councillor Isa touched on, with the flooding, and there's some other things that have obviously affected this Fairburn precinct recently. But I don't think we should... I still think the amount of work that went in behind this report prior to the floods, I think that it's a really great eye-opener, the floods, that it really was quite extensive consultation in terms of what happened. I'm just trying to get to the page where it has the list of the all of the users that were consulted in one of the rounds, but there was about 9 or 10 very specific groups that were consulted in addition to residents and just casual users, and I think that is something that can be missed sometimes in consultation of our wonderful open spaces, that whilst they may be seen as big sporting precincts, the people who just want to go there and walk their dog, or they just want to go for a run around that part of the river, are very valuable users to parts of our municipality. So I think that, here's a list that I was talking about. The in-depth interviews with the user groups included Netball Victoria, Golf Australia, Tennis Victoria, the Essendon District Netball Association, St John's Netball Club, Ascot Vale Tennis Club, Leisure Management Services, Riverside, Essendon Golf Club, Essendon Nine-Hole Golf Club, Victoria Police and PGT programs, and also the community and local residents, as I touched on before. So I really do think that the team did a great job to try to get to as many people to have as good an impact on this as possible. Obviously, we still need, a plan is one thing, delivering it is another, and it'll be interesting to see how that takes shape over the coming years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. And I might maybe ask our comms team just to have a look into Councillor Byrne's mic, as it does sound a little bit quiet. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? In that case, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that's carried unanimously. Item 9.6, award of contract number 203220, Sports Fields Floodlights Upgrades. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Sypek.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, but could I just ask for a clarification on something first?
Yes.
In regards to where it says in the impacts of the recommendation that the lighting that meets the requirements for safe training for AFL and soccer competition at average 100 lux LED. Now, if you understand what that means, you've got to have 100 lux all around the oval, which means the capacity of the light should be around about 120 to 150, so you don't have any dark spots. So are we just going to put 100 lux there, or are we going to be putting over 100 lux to receive the average of 100?
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Through the CEO, is that a question that can be answered based on the officer's recommended report?
Sorry, I don't have the information in front of me.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you,
So
CEO.
I've got a supplementary clarification.
Yes.
In regards to if we're looking at putting these lights in there and to increase the usage of these facilities to play night games, well, for night games you need 200 lux for AFL, and you only need 150 lux roughly to play night games for soccer.
Is there a question?
Well, the question is, this recommendation, will that cater for they can play night games, or is it just for training only?
I'll assume that the CEO doesn't have that information to hand. Thank you, CEO. Apologies, Councillor Sypek. Would you like to move the motion?
Well, yeah, look, I'd like to move the motion with a slight amendment saying that to cater for night games for AFL and for soccer.
So an additional...
Just an extra line after excluding GST, that the Lux will cater so that AFL and soccer competitions can be played.
I might stop you there, Councillor Sypek. Do you need a couple of minutes to formulate an alternative?
Sure.
Yep. I will call an adjournment for 4 minutes, returning at 7:28. Thanks. home for their patience and those in the gallery. We were up to item 9.6, award of contract number 203220, Sports Fields Floodlights Upgrades, and Councillor Sypek had the call moving a motion.
With a slight amendment, Mr Mayor. So, would you like me to read it out?
Yep.
Okay. The proposed motion is A, award the contract number 203220 for Sports Field floodlighting upgrade works to the trustee for the Bewired Unit Trust, ABN 67473590 for the lump sum amount of $662,911.00, excluding GST. Point B, endorse the financial arrangements detailed in the confidential attachment 1 and ensure that the lighting capacity can cater for nighttime competition to AFL and FAA standards. C, authorise the CEO or their delegate director services to negotiate and execute all relevant contract documentation related to contract number 203220 for sports field lighting upgrades on behalf of the council.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Can I just, in point B, clarify that last abbreviation, what you read out?
Mm-hmm.
What was that?
And ensure the lighting capacity can cater for nighttime competition to AFL and FAA standards. FFA, sorry.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek.
FFA.
Is there a seconder? Councillor Sharp. Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We as a council have always had a great sporting background. We've produced great sporting personalities, great celebrities, footballers, netballers. We can go on. And one of the joys that we have is we have a very, very strong competition, and our grounds really get used a lot. The problem is, Mr Mayor, we can't build double-storey fields, and we're land banked, right? So the only option that we have is to maybe extend the use of some of our ovals. And if we can play more night games, it takes the pressure off, and you can rotate this, so we can actually manage it a lot better if we, let's say, play on a Friday night and you give the oval Saturday and Sunday off. You give it 2 days to recover. So this lighting capacity will actually increase the capacity that Moonee Valley can cater for the growing sporting community here. And it's across the field. It's across the field. Cricket, soccer, hockey, everything. And we've got to have the right lights. You can't play in dull lights. I mean, you know, it'd be like playing in your backyard with the back porch on. You know, let's build a good standard here, and I think this will deliver world-class facilities in Moonee Valley.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. Certainly happy to concur with Councillor Sypek and happy to support his alternative motion. Councillor Sypek is certainly up to speed with requirements such as lighting and things like that, so I certainly trust his advice in regards to potentially, well, most likely needing a higher lux level than what is supported within this report. So the changes there should be able, we'll be able to negotiate that, but certainly concur that if we're doing, we're making the changes to these lights at these various ovals, that we do need to get it right the first time. That's 100% sure, because our clubs, they obviously need the lights to play, and obviously, as Councillor Sypek said, it's all about ensuring that there's more ability to play and train, and lighting obviously facilitates that, because our clubs can go into the night, and some of these clubs are already lit, but obviously the lighting is not up to scratch, and so either can't play or can't train, and it can be very difficult to be able to maximise usage on the ground. So happy to support this motion to get this project up, going, completed and done properly. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Would any other councillor like to speak to this motion? Councillor Bedio.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to support this, and I think it's a good amendment from Councillor Sypek. Obviously, that's an important standard in terms of requirements for play, and often complaints that I receive from clubs are that they're not up to spec, and it's dangerous, but also means that they can't play a lot of the allotted games for their sporting codes. The increase in women participation is fantastic, but it's put a lot of pressure on our sports grounds, and I see the need for us to be increasing the lighting capacity across all of our grounds, but this is a start. I would like to say as well, I have noticed that in some of the codes that a lot of the women's games are being played at night. I just hope that the prime time spots like the Saturday during the day and the Sunday days are shared with the women's, and that if we're providing upgrades to lighting in these sporting grounds, that the men and women share so that they all have the opportunity to play in prime time. But other than that, I'm happy to support, and I hope we can continue to roll out these projects in future.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Isa.
Mayor, can I just ask a point of clarification to the CEO? I'll ask questions first. Sorry, I spoke first. Do we know what sort of resource impact this will have, and whether point A is going to be enough for point B?
CEO, do you feel in a position to answer that question?
Thank you. I'm just advised most likely will mean a contract variation. The B.
What would if I can ask, what process does...
Question.
Sorry?
A supplementary
Yeah,
question.
sorry, if that's okay. What would the process be for that variation? I'm just wondering, would it be better if we deferred this for a fortnight to work through that to make sure that there was sufficient resources for the variation?
Councillor Isa, you might want to rephrase your question as it was seeking an opinion.
Do we have enough...
I'm happy to clarify. The point B may mean the scope is changed.
Sorry, the
The
point...
scope of the initial tender may have changed, and I'm not sure whether we can award contract.
So, sorry, Mayor, if I can ask, does point A work, given... I guess what I'm trying to tease out is whether, in fact, we're putting forward an inconsistent motion where point A and point B don't work together because... and I don't know how to ask that without asking an opinion.
CEO, maybe if I can paraphrase, is the motion consistent, and is A and B contradictory?
I do not have the information, so I'm not sure with the change of B whether A is still implementable.
Thank you, CEO. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak to the motion?
Yeah, look, I'm really supportive of these lighting projects. We put enough money in the budget to fund these lighting projects, and we have done the lighting audit to make sure that we're continually rolling out lighting on grounds where there is need. So fully in support of the projects that we need to do. What I'm concerned about, or the only thing I'm concerned about in this motion that's on the floor, is whether in fact we're putting forward something that is not implementable, because our point A is tied to a particular figure that we're not quite sure whether the amendment to point B and point C actually then means that there's an inconsistency there. And I apologise that I was not very quick to formulate my thoughts around how to articulate or ask that question, but that is, I guess what I'm thinking might be wiser is if we, and maybe I'll foreshadow a motion to defer so that we can take this offline for 2 weeks and make sure that we're not awarding some contracts that don't actually do what we want them to do in B and C. Because in A, we're awarding the contract for a certain figure, but we don't have the information to hand right now as to whether it can fulfil what we're asking for in B and C. Hope that makes some sense.
Thank you, Councillor Reiser. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councillor Sypek, for moving the motion and all of the input from around the table. I'm just getting up the minutes from the meeting from the 24th of May. In this report, it says that we resolved that 5 sports fields required upgrades to 100 lux as follows: the Buckley Park, Essendon, Upper North and Lower South Ovals, Houndstone Reserve, Airport West, Walter Street Reserve, Ascot Vale and Strathnava Reserve, Strathmore Heights. I'm just looking at the meeting minutes from that meeting, and from what I can see, that item 9.6 on the 24th of May, the sports field floodlight audit findings, the motion moved by Councillor Bedio, seconded by Councillor Tyson and carried unanimously, was to note the report for use as input for future planning and funding applications for sport field lighting projects, and authorises officers to address any detected errors in attachment 1. So, and then there was a second part from the advocacy point of view. So I believe that is what the motion is going off in the brief moment that I've had a look. I feel that the understanding from everyone around this table was it would be to cater for competition grade lights. I feel like that was definitely the intention. If somehow that has been misinterpreted from various motions, from the motion to get to the report to get back to what's actually been implemented, that's obviously unfortunate that we get to this stage where we're getting really excited to finally be able to award a contract. But we do want to make sure that we award the right contract. We want to make sure that we're not in breach of anything in the Local Government Act. We want to make sure that the procurement process is correct. In saying that, I think that the changes that Councillor Sypek has put into this motion is what everyone is hoping for, and I'm hoping that it is not a breach of anything. I don't know. That will obviously be discussed with the CEO and the Director, and the negotiations. Hopefully the variations are within a scope that is acceptable. I'm not sure what that scope change will be. It may not be. And I would be of the thought that if the scope change was such that it can't go ahead, that would then come back to Council. I will be supporting this motion with the hope that the scope change isn't big enough that it changes the ability for the contract to be awarded. But then I would also not be surprised if we're seeing this report come forward slightly, or a slightly different report come forward. So we'll just have to see how it is. Regardless, I think that when we finally get these lights, it is extremely exciting for the community. I know Councillor Sypek, Councillor Tyson, we've been down to Hanson Reserve many times talking about
Sorry,
the lights.
Councillor Byrne, your time has expired.
Right, bye. Thanks.
Sorry, Mayor, can I have a point of clarification? And
Councillor Bedio, yeah.
through to the Director of Service Delivery, and I apologise for putting this on the spot, but I think it's relevant considering we're making a decision on granting the funds. Is it of the understanding of the Director that the lights that were tendered for were to meet that standard?
Through the CEO.
Director of Delivery, do you have information? You don't have to if you don't have information.
They're not.
So you don't have any further information?
I said they're not to that standard. I said they're not to that standard.
Councillor Bedio, does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. Given that information, I'm hesitant to support. I don't want to not support it because we just need to get this done. But if we're awarding a contract that states that we're only going to be installing 100 lux bulbs, if we are going to make them of a higher grade, then it's going to obviously be more expensive, I would have thought. So I just don't know. I don't really know what to do, and I wish this had been brought up sooner.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Nation, you're the only councillor who hasn't spoken. Thank you. As there was disagreement around the table, Councillor Sypek.
Sorry, Mayor, can I ask a point of clarification?
Yes, you may.
So in the floodlight report, it says that Strathnaver Reserve has current lux of 102.4 and 112, depending on whether it's the north or the south oval. So I'm not really sure why we would be upgrading the lights if we would be going down to 100. So is there a chance?
So is there a question? Sorry, Councillor Byrne.
Yeah, so my question is, they wouldn't be going down? Like if they're already there. So is there a chance that the report...
Sorry, Councillor Byrne, I need a question.
Yeah, my point of clarification... Okay, so my question is the Strathnaver Reserve lights are already over 100 lux. So is there a chance that perhaps this is doing it already to cater for this so it wouldn't actually require a variation?
Through to the mover.
Through to the CEO.
CEO, do you feel in a position to respond to that question?
Sorry, I don't have information. My understanding is very likely it need to be variation, and if the scope change or not, we may need to go to the market again because the procurement process was a public tender.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Byrne?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Sypek, did you want to close?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As Councillor Burns stated correctly, some of these ovals do have more than 100 lux. So what we will be doing is we'll be reducing the lights on some of these ovals. Now, that's not a proper positive move, is it, Mr Mayor? The reason why is because we've got old halogen lights in there which suck up a lot of electricity, a lot of carbon emissions. We're replacing them with LED. And you know what, Mr Mayor? This is our first reducing carbon emission projects for Moonee Valley right now. How good is that? You know, and we've even got a fund of $900,000 if we need to dip into that to help pay for this, because we're reducing our carbon footprint, Mr Mayor. And this, once again, will ensure the children, the next generations in Moonee Valley, that they will have great facilities to play in. Not give them backwards facilities. Please, Mr Mayor, this is very important. And also I want to say is I have full trust, absolute full trust in the CEO and our officers to negotiate this variation. I do not hesitate in that whatsoever. Full trust. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. I'll put that to the vote.
Point of clarification. Sorry, is that too late?
No, Councillor Adams, that's fine. Just in time.
I don't know much about lighting, but is the difference, and this point of clarification is through to the CEO. I don't know whether you're going to be able to answer this, CEO, but if we're upgrading from halogen to LED, does it mean that the lights are brighter, even though they're like, do you know how, like when you change your house globes, like to LED, it's sometimes...
Yeah, there are different...
Like they're a bit brighter.
Councillor Sypek. Councillor Adams, had you finished your...
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Through to the CEO, do you believe that you can answer
So
that
I
question?
need to
or
take
an
this
officer?
question on notice. Thank you.
Thank you. Does that satisfy your point of clarification? Councillor Isa.
Sorry, can I just ask, through you to Councillor Byrne, whether the information you were looking at was the lighting, the Sportsfield lighting audit, because the Sportsfield lighting audit that I'm looking at doesn't have the figures that you were quoting. The Sportsfield lighting audit that I'm looking at says that the minimum lux at Strathnaver is 28 with an average 65, a current max 102, 112, but where there are patches of minimum of 33, 28, 65 and 70.
Councillor Byrne, do you...
I know what, unfortunately, Mayor, through to Councillor Isa, I've closed down the tab, and unless we wish to adjourn, I don't know how important your question is, but it would take me a while just to find that.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne, and I'll remind councillors that we have many reports to cover tonight. Any other councillor before I put that to the vote? No? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Adams, Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Nation, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sypek, Councillor Tyson. All those against? Councillor Isa. That motion is carried. We're now on to item 9.7, award contract number 203216, Keilor Road South Streetscape Construction. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks. Happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Sypek. Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. Hopefully this one is a bit more straightforward than the one that we just had, but this is to award a contract for the Keilor Road South Streetscape Construction to Terraform Civil Proprietary Limited for the lump sum amount of just over 700 grand. This is obviously just part of the Keilor Road streetscape, the opposite side of the umbrellas for where we're going. We obviously have lots of plans to beautify and green the area, and this is one step in the right direction. It's the first start of the project, so if you can imagine it, it goes from Hoffman's Road. I don't know why I'm telling you, Mayor, you're obviously a ward councillor and right across this project, but for people who are listening online and in the chamber, so from Hoffman's Road down to Elstone Court. So it'll be a very exciting project. The businesses in Keilor Road have had some great help with the umbrellas that have been installed on one side. This is the other side, and then earlier this year we've also started the consultation for the other side of Hoffman's Road down Keilor Road. So all of these things will help our thriving precinct of Keilor Road. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Keilor Road's a bit like a mullet haircut. We have the party on the side where the restaurants are, and we had the mullet on this side. But finally now we are going to do something really good here, Mr Mayor. And I've been waiting 20 years for this side to get done. The other side seems to get done over and over and over again, but this side's looking great. And also, what we're going to do is we're going to beautify our re-elected MP, Ben Carroll. His office is going to get a nice beautification through there as well. So it looks fantastic, Mr Mayor. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. I'm not sure it's a compliment to describe a street as a mullet, but I appreciate your rhetorical flourish. Would any other councillor like to speak to this motion? Councillor Nation.
Just a point of clarification to Councillor Sypek. I thought the mullet was the party. Business at the front, party at the back. So wouldn't the mullet be the party and the fringe would be the boring side?
Well, the fringe is the party side, which is sort of modern today, and the mullet's a 1980s style.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nation, did you want to speak to the motion? Great, thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? No? Councillor Bedio?
Thanks, Mayor. I'm happy to support, but I will say that there are quite a lot of commercial streets of the Moonee Valley that are in desperate need of some improvement. So I hope that we note that the investment we've made in Keilor Road over this financial year and coming into a new budget season, I hope we can consider that there are other streets that will need investment and that we factor this in when we make our capital works decisions.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Any other councillor? I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Next item is 9.8, award of contract number 203202, principal contractor for Flemington Library refurbishment. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Nation.
If no one else wants to, I'll move the officer's recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Is there a seconder? Councillor Bedio. Councillor Nation.
I'm just moving it because there wasn't a awardee that wanted to, so I'll let the others speak. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Bedio.
Obviously happy to support the officer's recommendation on this one. This is such an exciting project. It's in desperate need of refurbishment. There is a lot of work to be done, but obviously this is just a tender process, and I'm happy to back the officers in this, but I'm excited to get to work on this and be able to step into the new library ASAP.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Byrne.
I will, just that this is obviously an exciting project and one of 2 libraries that will be getting done in the near future, and hopefully with Didgeridoo being done in the medium future. One thing that has been quite frustrating whenever there's a large downpour of rain has been the issue with the Flemington roof, and what has been clarified is that these proposed works at the library include the replacement of the roof sheeting and also improvements to the collection of the roof stormwater, which will address the existing leaks within the building. So that's really exciting that that has been addressed. And thank you, or will be addressed. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is not a great project. This is an absolute stellar project. And the reason why is libraries are a source of information, an exchange of information. And we've got to keep these places alive. And Moonee Valley is very, very proud to have 2 of them. And like Councillor Byrne said, we're going to do both of them up. And, or actually, I think we got 4, haven't we? 5. Yeah, we've got 5. So, yeah, I've got a little bit... Sorry, I've been on holiday, so I'm just a little bit rusty.
But Councillor Sypek.
But like I said, this is another stellar project that we are going to become leaders again in the local government region. With the lights, many years ago, everyone looked to Moonee Valley to see what we were doing. Now, nobody's looking to us, but these kind of projects are going to put us back on the map. They're going to put Moonee Valley at the top of the pile in the local government in Victoria, maybe even Australia. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Item 9.9 on the agenda is Priority Projects Council Plan and Health Plan Implementation Update 2022-23, Quarter 1, July to September. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
I'd like to move that Council notes the Priority Projects Council Plan and Health Plan Implementation Update for Quarter 1, 2022-23, July to September, with the amendment to, with an amendment to the descriptor and location of point 22.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Are councillors aware of what's been moved? Just nods around the chamber would suffice. Yep. Is there a seconder? Councillor Byrne. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak?
This report documents a whole range of actions that Council's been taken. It's an excellent read to catch up on some of the fantastic projects that have been implemented. However, point 22 has a descriptor that's not accurate and a location that's not accurate. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Byrne.
So I just wanted to touch briefly on what they note. The key achievements in Quarter 1, which included the announcement of a train station to be constructed in Keilor East as part of the Airport Rail Link project. The opening of Moonee Valley's first electric vehicle charging station, which was located on the parade in Ascot Vale. And sorry, I don't have my microphone on, so no wonder that wasn't working. No, that's fine. And the completion and opening of pedestrian and cyclist bridge at Vanberg Road in Essendon. I do recommend people have a read of the report. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. And for those at home, Councillor Byrne recapped some projects that are listed in the report. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Item 9.10, Biannual Audit and Risk Committee Report 1-06-2022. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with an additional point B that reads, request that all minutes, agendas and invitations for meetings of the Audit and Risk Committee be circulated to all councillors.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Is there a seconder? Councillor Adams. Councillor Isa.
So for the past 18 months, I've attended the Audit and Risk Committee meetings as an observer, not being a member councillor of the committee, and I would commend that practice to all councillors around the room. The information shared at these meetings and the discussions with many of the officers who attend are critical to our good functioning, financially and reputationally. It's at the heart of good governance of this $200 million publicly funded organisation. Increasing our engagement in the committee as councillors would really benefit our decision making. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. And the Audit and Risk Committee assists Moonee Valley City Council in fulfilling its responsibilities relating to financial and performance reporting, risk management, corporate governance and internal control systems. And the Audit and Risk Committee report is basically a high-level overview summary of the matters that the committee has addressed in the reporting period in discharging its responsibilities under its charter. So the report we're receiving tonight and noting details activities undertaken by the committee for the period the 1st of January 2022 to the 30th of June 2022. Some highlights were Miss Lisa Young has joined the committee as new independent member in April 2022, replacing Mr. Stephen Horn. She brings additional knowledge in cybersecurity to the committee, allowing for a better review of these matters, and a much needed member of our Audit and Risk Committee. Crow Australasia has begun work as Council's internal auditors in March 2022, replacing Pitcher Partners. An updated audit plan 22-23 to 25-26 has been developed, and work on the open internal audit actions continued, and of 60 outstanding actions carried forward from 2021, 37 could be closed during the reporting period, only 23 remained open, and fully support the amendment that Councillor Isa put forward as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Adams. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Audit and Risk Committee. This is one of the fundamental committees that every council needs. It's great for the checks and balances. We as councillors can't keep abreast of everything, but the Audit and Risk Committee, they get a lot more information that what happens in the background. And this is great that they analyse it, they get a report, but we also get the report and the papers as well, which gives us far more information to give us better opportunities to make more informed decisions as leaders in the community. So I welcome Councillor Isa's motion to bring the papers to the councillors so we are fully informed.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak? I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Item 9.11, Graffiti Management Policy 2022. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
I'd like to move that Council resolves to A, adopt the updated Graffiti Management Policy, Attachment 1, with the inclusion of including traders in the statement, provide support to community members, including traders, to help them manage graffiti on private property and land, and B, request a review of the policy after 12 months of its implementation.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Is there a seconder? Councillor Sypek. Councillor Isa.
So the policy takes a slightly different approach to graffiti in our municipality, really recognising that graffiti on property isn't the fault of the property owner, it's the fault of the people who are running around tagging, scribbling all over things. The new policy sets out some greater emphasis on street art and working with community groups to try to prevent, so some preventative actions, bringing us more closely in line with our other neighbouring M9 councils that also deal obviously with graffiti. It also goes back to making sure that we provide our Residents with graffiti removal kits, something that we stopped doing some years ago when there was an incident in another municipality around the chemicals that were used in those kits, but going back to providing those kits again like other councils do. So I'm really pleased to see us taking those particular steps. I do in Moonee Ward, we get regular requests from traders, both in Moonee Ponds, in Flemington, less so in Union Road, I think, but certainly along Mount Road. We've got beautiful shop fronts with the elevated heritage areas that are just graffitied over, and traders really struggle to keep up with the removal. So I'd really like us to include the traders in that category of people who we respond to positively, empathetically, and with a real view to assisting them to keep our area beautiful. It's not easy to keep up with graffiti. But there is some really good literature out there around preventative measures, and the more that we can take that on board and help people, including traders, then hopefully the better things will look. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isaac. Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Graffiti is a very broad word. To someone it could be graffiti, and to someone it could be art, just like Councillor Isaac said. And who's going to be the judge of that? I don't know. But once again, also in appropriate and inappropriate areas where this graffiti happens, or street art. So I fully support this motion to help the residents to go down this policy. I think it's the right way forward. Graffiti has been around for many, many years, and I think the graffiti will outlast all of us councillors as well. It's going to be around forever. So all we have to do is just adjust and balance to what happens out there, and hopefully some of this art, some of this graffiti actually is good art and might end up being a iconic sort of wall like in Moonee Valley. Who knows?
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll just highlight some of the changes from the previous policy, which include return to providing graffiti removal kits and vouchers on demand, investigate re-establishing a partnership with the Department of Justice's Community Correctional Services graffiti removal program, introduce a public art graffiti prevention program focused on signal boxes and murals, actively target Department of Justice and Community Safety grants for funding or supplementary funding, and protect heritage listed building of local significance by discouraging demolition through neglect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. Just briefly, yourself and I obviously went out today with a resident and an officer to Puckle Street, and it's really disappointing to see one of our most popular shopping strips within our municipality that we have such a strong name for, that's connected so closely to our city, being graffitied, particularly as Councillor Isa spoke about on that second level of, that first level of those heritage buildings. Some of the good news for that, if people are tuning in online, is that there is a plan in place and a lot of that graffiti will be being cleaned up, which is exciting. One thing that people may not realise is it's actually hard. Council can't just get up there and clean it themselves. There has to be the consent from all of the property owners, and sometimes it can be hard to get in contact with them. These things can take time. So it's not so much just about getting someone up there, and obviously those types of work are difficult and it takes time to get particular trades in to be able to do them, but so there is some relief coming to Puckle Street soon, or hopefully soon. But graffiti is obviously an issue. I think that it's important to differentiate between graffiti and artwork. Some of the graffiti that we've been seeing around this city, particularly post-lockdown, has been really disturbing to see. So I'm really glad that we're updating the policy in order to reflect what is needed and wanted by our community. I think that every municipality manages their graffiti task force slightly differently, and we're upgrading ours to be in line with some of our other M9 councils, and hopefully this works, but with the additional of point B, we'll see how it's working. It may be that we need to adjust it further. And but hopefully we can change some mindset. I do agree with Councillor Sypek that graffiti will always be around, but I do think that the impacts of it have been felt and seen a lot more over the past probably 12 to 18 months. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Now on to item 9.12, Draft Community Facilities Management Policy.
Thanks, Mayor. As mentioned at the start of the meeting, I've declared a general conflict of interest in this item 9.12, the Draft Community Facilities Management Plan, for reasons disclosed to the CEO in writing before the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. And now that Councillor Byrne has left the chamber, councillors, do I have a motion? Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Isa.
Move the officer's recommendation. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Is there a seconder? Councillor Adams. Councillor Isa.
This is being put out for consultation and keen to see the feedback. Fair and equal and affordable access to our community facilities is important, and we really need to get the policy settings right, so keen to hear what people have got to say.
Thank you. Councillor Adams. Thank you, Councillor Adams. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour, and that is carried unanimously. And we'll invite Councillor Byrne to rejoin us. Welcome back, Councillor Byrne, and we move on to item 9.13, Councillor Code of Conduct Review 2022. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to move that Council resolves to defer consideration of the revised Code of Conduct until February 2023.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne, and I'll just ask governance to update that on the screen to February. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Is there a seconder? Councillor Adams. Councillor Byrne.
Oh, thanks. Look, I don't normally like to defer items on agenda. I'm actually normally quite against it. But this is our code of conduct, and this is probably one of those things that we do need all 9 councillors to be involved in. Obviously, we're missing Councillor Hodgson today due to reasons that obviously don't want to go into the reasons, but she cannot be here today, and I just don't think that it would be appropriate to be changing the code of conduct without a full suite. I don't think that this... We obviously have to make a lot of decisions in the council chamber on every fortnight, and I understand that, and I don't want to take the weight off any other decisions that we get made. But there's probably a few, this being one, things to do with CEO matters being another, mayoral elections being another, where you really do want a full suite of councillors. I don't think that there is any time pressures on this one, so I don't see there being an issue in just making it one of the first few meetings back. Obviously, if there's not agreement by councillors, then so be it. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. And before we move on, I might just note that to change the Code of Conduct in accordance with Section 140(2) of the Local Government Act, the Council can only amend the Council Code of Conduct by a formal resolution of the Council passed at a meeting by at least 2/3 of the total number of councillors. In this case, it is 6. However, this motion procedurally does not change the Code of Conduct, so only requires a simple majority of councillors present. Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I concur with Councillor Byrne and nothing further to add. Thank you.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Isa.
I just wonder whether I might be able to move an amendment to include the word after until after February 2023.
You're moving that as an amendment.
There's a seconder.
Is there a seconder for your amendment? Seconder? No, unfortunately that isn't acceptable.
So the reason for putting the word after is that our planning weekend isn't likely to be until late February, and I did think that there might be an opportunity to go over any areas of disagreement at the February planning meeting so that it could then come back to council to meet the threshold of the 6 councillors. But look, it doesn't matter, because if if it comes back in February and it's not likely to, if there's still some concerns or uncertainties, we can always defer it for a bit longer. So I'm not too fussed. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to foreshadow the original motion just in case if this fails. And secondly, I've been on holidays for 6 weeks and I've had numerous emails, numerous amendments, phone calls, code of conduct. We've all been on council for 2 years and a little bit, and we've all been talking about this. I don't see the reason why we should defer this. We've all been involved with it. We've all been here. We've all had the amendments here, and we as a group of 8 people can make a decision here. So, and that's the reason why you've got the casting vote too, Mr Mayor. So, just in case if there is a 4x4. So, for me, I think the officers have put a lot of work in this, and I don't think it should be deferred. I think the officers have done a great job. We've had plenty of input into this. Why defer it?
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. And can I just clarify, you said foreshadow the original motion. Did you mean the officer's recommendation?
Yeah.
Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Bedio.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. I'm not supportive of pushing this back any further, or for the deferral. It seems a little bit suspect to me. We were all surprised Councillor Sypek was here today. He did foreshadow earlier that he might not have made it today, yet there was no talk of a deferral, noting that Councillor Sypek might not be here. So it just seems a little bit suspect and like there's a purpose for it, but so I won't be supporting.
Sorry, Councillor. No, sorry, Councillor Isaac. Councillor Bedio, can you please explain your use of the word suspect?
Is that a point of
And
clarification?
Is that a point of clarification or a point of order?
No. Can you please clarify your use of the word suspect and whether it's making inferences on
Who
the
asked for
mover?
clarification?
I can ask these questions,
Oh, really?
Councillor Sypek. Councillor Bedio.
It's suspect that there is an ulterior motive as to why it's being deferred.
I might ask you to withdraw that, as it makes inferences potentially on the mover and seconder.
Well, that's a joke,
Of
but
the
okay,
motion.
I'll withdraw it, but that's a joke.
You must withdraw without
Yep, whatever, I'll
qualification.
withdraw, whatever.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Isa.
Yeah, I know I've spoken. Sorry, I just thought I heard...
Oh, sorry, Councillor Isa. Do you have a point of order or a point of
A
clarification?
point of clarification,
Thank you.
Mayor. I just thought I heard Councillor Bedio say that there hadn't been any circulation of intention to defer, and I just wanted to clarify whether that comment was made. Thanks.
Councillor, is that directed to Councillor Bedio? Councillor Bedio,
I haven't received any correspondence about deferral.
thank
Could
you.
I just please seek...
Supplementary question.
Thanks. Could I ask you, Mayor, whether you received my email today at, it was about at 2 o'clock, where I listed a number of different proposals, including this particular amendment?
Councillor Isa, I can confirm that you circulated an alternative to this motion, which is the same as was moved. Thank you. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Adams, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Isa, Councillor Tyson. All those against? Councillor Bedio, Councillor Nation, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sypek. On the casting vote of the Mayor, I declare that carried.
Oh, of course.
We now move on to item 9.14, Capital Works Performance Report September 2022. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, please.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Byrne. Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. This report has been prepared by officers to inform Council and the community on the progress of delivery of the much anticipated 22-23 Capital Works program. Thank you to officers for the enormous amount of work involved to present this information in a clear way through this document. I know ourselves...
Sorry, Councillor Adams, please continue.
I know ourselves as councillors as well as officers have shared the frustrations of our community to deliver on our budget commitments. As an organisation, we're not alone in industry in experiencing delays on the delivery of capital works. The main reasons for industry impacts post-COVID include slow or poor market interest in council tenders, rising inflation and impacts on construction material costs, competitive labour market conditions and recruitment challenges. As an organisation, we are focused on the review of procurement efficiencies in an effort to mitigate delivery rates of the Capital Works program, including the establishment of a new contractor panels, bundling of similar work programs, and reviewing contract options to improve contractor management and enable quick response to the rise and fall of market costs. At a high-level summary, this report adopts the 22-23 Capital Works program budget of $51,940,251 million and carries over from 21-22 Capital Works program the amount of $20,656,228. Which leads to a revised budget of $72,634,244. The total expenditure at the September 22 quarter is $5,359,262, or 7%, which trends with previous years. I encourage those watching to download this report to check the status of projects you are curious about to know where it's at. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. This is obviously always really exciting when we get through the Capital Works performance report, where, as Councillor Adams touched on, it's going, it was about $50 million, and then from the carryovers from 21-22 financial year, it's up to about $72 million. I'm mindful that in the report it does say that I believe it was about 15% has low delivery confidence in terms of what we put in the budget. But that doesn't mean it's zero delivery confidence. We never know, we might get there. But 49%, so half of it is high delivery confidence, and 30%, which is 22 million, as a medium delivery confidence. Some of the exciting things that happened in Rosehill Ward include the umbrellas on Keeler Road, some works at AJ Davis, and something that was really anticipated for a long time, which was some road traffic speed humps and whatnot in Airport West that was following on from the long work of the LATAM that was done a few years ago. Obviously, the total expenditure for Q1 is just over $5 million. That will obviously increase significantly now that tenders have gone out and are being awarded. So looking forward to the next update. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to this motion? Councillor Isa.
I just wanted to draw people's attention to a diagram on page 3 of the attachment that is a really useful depiction of the percentage of projects that have gone forward and then projects that have been delayed. And I think it's a really helpful illustration, and it's categorised in our 5 MV 2040 themes. So if people are really interested in understanding the real impact of these pressures, the pressures that Councillor Adams and Councillor Burns spoke of, and how that's translating to the delivery of our projects, I would recommend having a look at that diagram on page 3. Following that diagram, there's then a really, really useful list of projects that have been delayed. I'm often asked, I'm sure everyone around the table is often asked by residents, when is X happening? We saw it in the budget, why hasn't it happened yet? There are projects in Moonee, the Ormond Park Playground has just finally started, 177A, Flemington, the Mount Road. There are a number of projects that I'm regularly asked about. This particular list in the attachment is a really helpful resource for people who are wondering how particular projects are going, and I'd just suggest having a look at that for people who are interested. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is Councillor Adams, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Isa, Councillor Nation, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sypek, Councillor Tyson. All those against? Councillor Bedio. I declare that motion carried. Item 9.15, Financial Performance Report September 2022. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Adams.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation, please.
Thank you. And a seconder? Councillor Isa. Councillor Adams.
Council is required to receive quarterly financial performance reports in accordance with Section 97(1) of the Local Government Act 2020. This report is for the period 1st of July 2022 to 30 September 2022. In line with good governance, it forms part of the public accountability process and reporting, and includes the operating statement, balance sheet, cash flow statement and capital expenditure. In the report, there is a table that summarises the financial performance for the period 1st of July 2022 to the 30th of September 2022. Some of the key things in that table are the year-to-date favourable surplus is predominantly due to higher income received from statutory fees and fines, and underspend in employee costs and materials and services, offset by an increase in depreciation and user fees. The annual forecast variance includes increased revenue in operating grants of $2.2 million, offset by lower user fees of $1.3 million. There are forecast increases in employee costs of $0.2 million and depreciation of $1.3 million. The year-to-date favourable variance to cash and investments is due to the higher opening cash position at the beginning of the financial year and timing differences in receipt of rates, contributions, user fees, government grants and payments to suppliers. With regard to debt levels, the annual budget includes $13 million of current year borrowings plus $10 million of carried over borrowings from 21-22. At the end of the 21-22 financial year, rates receivable were $12.6 million, which reflects an increase of 2.44% on 2021. Since the start of this financial year, 414, compared with last year of 303, ratepayers have applied for payment arrangements. And with regards to capital works, as mentioned in an earlier report, the year-to-date underspend is due to a range of factors, including limited market availability of fleet, lack of market interest in tenders and contract availability. In conclusion, the finance report for the 3 months ended 30 September 2022 indicates that Council's overall financial position for the year ending 30 June 2023 is sound. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Adams. Councillor Isa, would you like to speak? No. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just have a look again. Yeah, this financial performance report, this is great reading if you know what you're reading, right? But I think our viewers and most of the public don't understand sometimes what this really means. This is a great report card. This is a report card that our officers and our CEO produce for us to look at, and for anyone that want to look at these papers. And this is a good snapshot of where we are at right now. This has been put together, and I commend the officers. It's simple, it's easy to understand, and you can get clarification from any of the officers if you want to call up or anything. It's just a good report card by our officers. So I want to say thank you to the CEO and thank you to our officers.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak? If not, I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. Item 9.16, proposed financial relief for flood impacted residents and community groups. Councillors, do I have a motion? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I'd like to move the officer's recommendation with a slight change of point B to read for the first dot point a rebate of 100%.
Thank
and
you.
the rest as is.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Can I just get that on the screen? Governance. Is governance comfortable with that? And Councillor Byrne, is that what you
and
moved?
point E, yes, so as is, and then point E, an additional point E
Yep.
to read, request an update on whether affected community groups have been able to access Phase 2 and Phase 3 state government grants or other grants to inform any further support that may be required.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Are councillors aware of what is being moved? Just a nod of the heads or a shake if not. Yep. Councillor Nation? Yep. Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Isa? Councillor Byrne, would you like to speak to the motion?
Thanks, Mayor. There's no doubt that everyone Australia-wide, and there were people outside of Australia that knew about the catastrophic flooding events that we had in Victoria during October, and unfortunately we were one of the municipalities that were severely affected. And whilst we've had one of the greatest community responses that I've ever seen in my time on council, unfortunately there are still the long-term effects of the floods that did occur. And I think that this motion is a particularly good one in regards to our community groups and also some of the residents that have been displaced. In terms of the residents, one of our retirement villages in Avondale Heights that I know yourself and Councillor Sypek and myself have been out to had a lot of damage, and unfortunately it wasn't very much damage, but it was above the skirting board, which basically means that a lot of the villas have to be completely ripped out, which means that a lot of elderly residents have had to be moved out of our municipality, many of which to Micklem, some to family members, but a lot outside of the municipality, unfortunately. And I think that there are a variety of levers that we can pull, but I think that a rebate of 100% of their rates is a very small gesture in the scheme of things to be able to give them some relief for all of what they have been through. Obviously, this is a very rare event. This is a natural disaster. We're hoping, whilst we acknowledge climate change is here, an event like this, flooding a whole nursing home that's on a hill, shouldn't really happen, and we hope that it doesn't happen again, and it is only a 1 in 100 year event. We obviously, there will be improvements to the nursing home and whatnot. I believe the last time, even in '93, it wouldn't have happened to this extent, so that was 30 years ago. Our community groups have obviously been really impacted. Credit to our officers who designed our pavilions, because none of our pavilions, except for storage cages underneath and obviously the rowing sheds, were significantly damaged. However, a lot of that underneath storage was their barbecues and things that they use to be able to raise funds for their respective groups. So there was quite a few groups that received some funding through the state government, but realistically I just think that all levels of government really need to work together to be able to support the people and groups that were impacted, and this is how, on top of what we did initially with having staff and volunteers doing everything for the clean-up, of which we've previously acknowledged to the CEO that it was such an amazing effort by everybody. We need to continue to make sure that we help out those affected. The reason why I think that 100% of the rebate for the rates is an appropriate figure is my understanding, particularly from the residents of Riverview, is that they may actually be out of their homes until at least April. So instead of potentially coming back regularly, if we were just to give a small amount, if we just give what's not even going to cover their rates for them being out, I acknowledge in the report they say that the situation will be monitored, and I think that's good. But this is such a small piece of our $200 million budget for people who aren't even living in our municipality through no fault of their own. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Isa.
Just to clarify that the 100% on the rates is just for a quarter. Just to clarify that, which I feel stingy saying that, but it's hopefully of some relief to those residents impacted, and doesn't come at too great a cost to council. The cost to residents has just been so enormous. I think a few of us were down at the rowing shed on the Sunday watching the rowing club. They had gone down in the morning of the Friday to try to put some things up high, but unfortunately they didn't put things up high enough, and some really precious items were ruined, and club members were quite devastated. Similarly, on the Saturday morning, the canoe club and the scouts trying to sort through a lot of their lost goods. But even more so, some of the residents along Wood Street who, some of whom went through really traumatic scenarios where they were rescued by people jumping over their back fence to get them out of their homes because the water just rose so fast. People hadn't moved their cars, and cars were ruined, and a number of homes were just completely inundated. And I'm thinking of a lovely couple in Wood Street who I met on the Monday when I went down to see how everyone was faring, and Terry and Beth were cleaning out their son's 21st birthday photos that had all been ruined. And so, those moments of watching your life get all soggy and having to deal with that. So this is a very small measure that hopefully we can offer as a council, just some financial relief. Fortunately, the state government's offering some good grants for clubs, but we're just putting in that extra point, just asking officers if they can come back to us just with some further information about whether the clubs can actually access those quite generous state government grants, because I would want to be sure that there aren't some thresholds or criteria that they don't meet. And if there's any further support that we might need to provide to clubs in terms of equipment recouping through our grants processes potentially is one option. I'll finish there, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Isa. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Now, let me start first by, I fully support this, but I think it's not enough, Mr Mayor. And I want to give you three very important numbers: 69, 28 and 3. And you know what they stand for, Mr Mayor? Every dollar that we pay in tax, 69 cents goes to the federal government, 28 cents goes to the state government, and 3 cents comes to the City of Moonee Valley and other local governments. What we're doing here is great, but we're just paying 100% of a quarter bill. I mean, this should be fully reimbursed. We have a pensioner scheme that gets reimbursement from the state government, and it's only still $20, I believe, either $50. I'm not too sure of the figure, but we did get a reimbursement. That has not had a CPI increase since 1983, Mr Mayor, and that's not good. What should happen here is these people who have been affected in Moonee Valley should get a full rebate from the state government on their one yearly rate notices. So I would like to put an amendment, Mr Mayor, that we write to the state government to the Minister for Local Government or whoever the Treasurer, whoever it will be.
Sorry, Councillor Sypek, your amendment needs to be specific.
Okay, we write to the state government, to the appropriate minister, to ask for a full rebate for the rates for our affected residents.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. I'll pause and allow you to speak to governance.
I think it's very straightforward. We're just writing a letter.
That was a full sentence, though. I'll need you to speak to governance or repeat your additional point F.
Okay. My amendment is that we write a letter to the relevant minister asking that the residents who are affected by the flood get a full rebate on their rate notice.
Councillor Sypek, can I ask you to check the screen of point F, whether that's what you are moving?
Not to get to receive a full rebate of their rate notice.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Can I check with governance whether there are any issues with that? Governance? No? Councillor Sypek, can I just question the jurisdictional element of this? Just whether writing to the relevant minister is relevant in terms of a rate notice?
A relevant minister to the relevant rate notice.
Writing to the relevant minister regarding a rate notice?
Yes, well, we wrote...
Sorry, just...
please
go ahead.
I'm answering
No.
you.
Yeah.
We're already doing it because many years ago we wrote to the state government to get a full rebate for pensioners, and many years ago they had a 50% rebate on their rate notice, but that 50% that was paid, that nominal money notification was never increased, right? So there is precedence for this, and Mr. Mayor, we're just writing the letter. We're not demanding,
So I'm not looking for debate, Councillor Sypek, just whether the motion can be implemented. Governance?
You're writing a letter. I'll give you the paper.
Sorry,
if you
Councillor
want.
Sypek. Governance?
Jesus.
I'll ask you a question, clarification through to Councillor Sypek.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Councillor Bedio.
My understanding is the intention is that we seek state funding to cover our loss of waiving the rates.
No.
Sorry, Councillor Sypek.
He's asking me a question.
Go ahead.
Can I answer?
Yep.
Thank you. We're writing a letter to the state government asking for them to reimburse all affected residents in the city of Moonee Valley that were affected by the flood. Right, so they would virtually pay, that would get reimbursed their full rate notice for the year, rather than us giving them, $50 off on a quarter or something.
Right, okay.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Does that answer your point of clarity? Thank you. Governance?
I think it can be implemented if Councillor Sypek can specify which minister to write to. I cannot comment on the full rebate on the rate notice, but we can write to the minister to implement this one.
Thank you, Governance. I'm satisfied to go ahead if the amendment, the additional point isn't able to be implemented, then that will fall away. Is there a seconder for the amendment? Councillor Nation. Councillor Sypek, would you like to speak to your amendment?
Well, we're writing a letter. We're writing a letter with one paragraph saying, would the state government consider reimbursing victims in the city of Moonee Valley? I don't see what the drama is here. And if we're not going to support this, it's just a letter. We're not demanding their firstborn to be given to us. It's just it's just writing a letter. And most likely the answer will be no. But we've got to ask the question. If you don't ask the question, you'll never get anywhere. So let's just ask the question, guys. It's a letter. A letter. A4. I'll even bring it to you, Mr. Mayor, if you want me to do it. But please, guys, let's just ask the question. That's all it is.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Councillor Nation, would you like to speak? No. I will put that amendment to the... Sorry, would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? Councillor Isa.
I won't support the amendment. Look, I really hold the reputation of Moonee Valley Council quite dear, and I consider it my job as a councillor to represent Moonee Valley in the best way possible and not make us look silly in front of other levels of government. And asking a minister to pay our residents their rates for the floods is going to make us look silly. And I don't particularly enjoy being made to look silly. I think there have been a number of times tonight where around the table I've felt as though we look silly, and I don't enjoy that. And so I'm not going to...
Are you, Zach, referring to me?
Sorry, Councillor Sypek. Sorry, is there a
Is that
point of
comment
order?
referring to me?
Sorry, Councillor
That I
Sypek.
make look silly or something?
I believe Councillor Isa referred to the motion, the amendment, sorry.
Oh, really?
Do you have a point of order or a point of
Yeah.
clarification?
No, that's all right. That's right.
Thank you.
I'll just be silly.
Thank you,
I'll just be
Councillor.
silly.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion, the amendment? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I see your intention here, Councillor Sypek, and I actually think your amendment is very similar to what 9.2 reads in the conclusion, which is Council will contact the state government to determine if the proposed financial relief can be included as part of a claim in the jointly funded Commonwealth State Disaster Recovery funding arrangements. So I sort of see how they overlap. I see the intention. I don't think it necessarily needs to be put in the motion. I think the intention is right. I think the wording is probably not right in terms of how it needs to be, and I think that because it's getting done anyway in a slightly different way, that your intention's going to get carried based on 9.2, which is effectively something similar. Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any other councillor like to speak to the amendment? No, I will put that.
Can I close because there was dissent?
Sorry, Councillor Sypek, under Governance Rule 31.4, a mover an amendment has no right of reply or closing statement before the motion is put to the vote. In that case, I will put that amendment to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Bedio, Councillor Nation, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sypek. All those against? Councillor Adams, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Isa, Councillor Tyson. On the casting vote of the Mayor, that amendment is lost. Councillor Sypek, you had the call.
Well, I have the call. That's interesting. Where do I start here, Mr. Mayor? We have people who are out of their homes. We have people who are financially not getting anything right now. And we are going to give them this wonderful gesture of paying half or 100% of a quarter of their bill, Mr. Mayor. I mean, that's embarrassing. That's silly. What we should be doing is paying either the whole rates, not just a quarter, 100% of a quarter. And for us not to write a letter, unbelievable. It's a letter, a letter. And it's not silly. We write to ministers all the time. We heard before that we advocate to ministers. We advocate, we write to them, we go and see them. How is this any different to the advocacy that we've done before, Mr Mayor? You can't pick and choose here. This is to support our residents. And what's happening now, our residents are going to get 100% of a quarter of a bill. That's embarrassing.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak to the substantive?
Sorry, can I just ask a point of clarification?
Councillor Byrne?
Was Councillor Sypek planning on moving an additional amount to be included for the residents as an amendment?
No, because the four will vote against whatever I do, and that'll be it.
Does that answer your point of clarification? Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Would any councillor like to speak to the motion? No? I will put that.
Do I get to close?
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. I invite you to close.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I think that there's been some very interesting discussion around the chamber. I think that there's a few things. I've got no issues with writing a letter. I don't think that what was put up as the amendment was worded in the right way, so I didn't support it, but I do think that what the intention was is carried in what 9.2, and it will effectively be done anyway. Something else that I think that is positive is that 9.1 is council will continue to monitor any escalations of impact over the coming months to determine any further support that may be required within the 2022-23 financial year. So whilst this is a start for a rebate of 100%, which will probably be about $500 per household that were affected based on $2,000 a year rates, I think that, you know, that may increase or it may change as time goes on if council determines. So this is a start. I wasn't sure whether Councillor Sypek was going to move a further amendment to change it to perhaps quarter 2 and quarter 3. Obviously I can't do that as the mover of the motion, so the substantive is what it is. So I will leave as is because I feel like it covers off most of the concerns that were raised. But one thing that was raised around the chamber fairly consistently across everyone is that we do want to support our residents, and there is doesn't seem to be any objection. It's just whether we do it all in one lot now or whether we have to continue it over a period of time. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? Councillor Adams, Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Isa, Councillor Nation, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Tyson. All those opposed? Councillor Sypek. I declare that motion carried. And I'd also like to, on that point, thank our CEO, her staff and community members, as councillors touched on during that debate with the floods. Thank you. Now we move on to item 10, notices of motion, and we have 2 listed on tonight's agenda. However, one is confidential and will be heard in the confidential section of tonight's meeting. And we move on to 10.1. I call on Councillor Nation to present his notice of motion titled Notice of Motion number 2022/29, Letters Arising from Notice of Motions.
Do we write letters, do we?
Thanks, Mayor. I would like to move that Council 1 commit to a process regarding the drafting and sending of letters arising from notice of motions, which A, includes a maximum of 4 business days to draft letters and a maximum of 4 business days to sign and distribute letters, and B, notes that achieving this timeline is subject to the Mayor of the Day signing the letters within the time frame above, and C, once established, is communicated to all councillors, and a point 2, return to the previous convention of bringing a quarterly report to council that includes A, copies of all communications sent that has arisen from a notice of motion, and B, copies of all correspondence received back arising from letters sent, and C, a list of outstanding notice of motions or notice of motions that have only been actioned in part.
Thank you, Councillor Nation, and I might just ask governance in 2A at the end there, and B on the screen was not read out at the end of point A.
Oh, sorry, and.
Under 2A A, and at the end there. Yep. Thank you.
So I didn't read and.
Yeah, I believe that's just the and deleted from
No,
two.
I read it.
You did?
I did read and, yeah. I just
Thank
read
you.
what's in the
Yep.
papers.
Thank you.
You know?
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Bedio. Councillor Nation, would you like to speak to your motion?
I will, Mayor. And look, let me just say that I've obviously said my piece internally to councillors and to staff, so I don't want to rehash a timeline. But I guess through this motion, what I would like is just for council to commit to a process, not a policy. I don't want to create a new policy. I don't want to go write new documents. I just want a process that if we, as councillors, are bringing matters to council to be actioned, and a lot of the time notice of motions is our only capacity to do that as individual councillors, is to bring items to council meetings to become formal business, then there is a process that we're all comfortable with, that should a motion be moved that includes the writing of a letter, that letter is then drafted, signed and sent in a timely manner. The days and times that I've put within part 1, if 4 days is too short and it needs to be more, it's open to change. But I guess we just need to all be of an understanding that if we leave a meeting and we've resolved to write a letter, that letter doesn't take 55 days to be sent. I do appreciate there is an internal process that was decided on in July 2022, but unfortunately there was still notice of motion letters after that date that still were taking considerable time to be sent. Now, the wording of this notice of motion is not exactly as I intended, because a lot of it also falls to the Mayor of the day to actually action the letters once they're drafted. I did want to look at a possibility of, well, what happens if the Mayor of the day actually doesn't sign a letter? Does the letter still get sent? But I don't think it's in the remit of the organisation to force a mayor to sign a letter. I guess that's just the mayor's option. So that part was deleted. As I said, look, I don't want to create a new policy. I just would like us to leave, at least this meeting, all of the understanding that that we don't have to chase up our own notice of motions to get letters sent. Item 2, and look, I don't know if there's appetite for this. Well, I don't know if there's appetite for part 1, to be honest, but I don't know if there's appetite for part 2. We did have a convention on the previous council, and that letters arising from notice of motions, just copies were included in a quarterly report that came to council. That report also had if we'd receive correspondence back, and that was also quite beneficial for us as councillors, because at times we don't necessarily see that, and it actually might be something that we can then action and bring to council. So it was beneficial to have them included. And then just a list of outstanding notice of motions, and notice of motions have only been actioned in part. I do note again we do have an internal status of resolutions, but we used to have this quarterly report. I think it was beneficial. I think it was good for us as councillors to then look at things that needed to be actioned or brought back to council. So again, yeah, I just would like to see those matters that we, I guess, as councillors hold maybe a little bit dearer because we've brought them and championed them at a councillor level to a meeting as a notice of motion, that we just know that those things are getting actioned in the background. And I think that's an expectation that we would all have anyway, but hopefully tonight we just as a group can agree on some sort of process that we can follow. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Councillor Bedio.
Yeah, happy to support this. It is disappointing in the past, noting that some of the directives from council, in the sense of sending letters, it's taken a significant amount of time to send. I think if council requests that we send a letter, that's a reasonable request, and that request should be actioned by the organisation quickly. But also, if council makes a directive to send a letter, and that is a majority decision, then it is the onus of the mayor to sign that letter as well, even whether or not they personally want to or not. That would be my understanding. And I think it's important to have this written down and noted so that everyone knows what the process is. I mean, at the end of the day, if we can't get a letter sent out correctly, sometimes I don't know what we're doing here half the time. So yeah, happy to support this motion. I think it's makes a lot of sense.
Thank you, Councillor Bedio. Would any councillor like to speak on this motion? Councillor Sypek.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm sort of asking for a point of clarification here to Councillor Nation. With the process, what is the process, whether the letter is warranted or not warranted, or how's it going to, what are you trying to, or you're looking for the timeline?
Councillor Nation.
Yeah, no, so it's just, Councillor Sypek, thanks for the question. It is just to commit to a timeline and a process for letters to be sent. I think if a resolution is made of council to send a letter, then there shouldn't be an extra criteria that warrants it being sent or not sent. I would have thought the resolution says it's going to be sent. I think it's just what he's doing is just saying, all right, what's a timely, a standard time frame for that letter to be sent.
So it won't be critiqued or anything.
An additional question.
Yeah, so it won't be critiqued or something.
Councillor Nation, are you able to answer
that? Look, I think there is scope within any resolution that if the mayor of the day is signing the letter, that the mayor is entitled to write the letter in their words. But I think it needs to obviously still comply with the resolution. But I can't see an issue with the mayor of the day paraphrasing what they need to do because they are signing the letter.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. Before I call on Councillor Sypek again, I'll just remind councillors, and the debate has been very respectful so far, but to just avoid criticising officers and making reflections on the chair, which councillors have done so far. But just a reminder, Councillor Sypek, did you just have a point of clarification?
I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. That would be very silly to do.
Did you want to speak to the motion?
Yes, please.
Yep, please go ahead.
When I first read this report, I was fully supportive of it. But what's happened in the last couple of minutes, I don't know what's the point of writing letters? Because we're not even going to get the letters in the first place. So why have a process for them, Councillor Nation? There is no need for it. We don't write letters anymore in Moonee Valley. Writing a letter. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Sypek. Would any other councillor like to speak on the motion? Councillor Isa.
Look, I appreciate the intent of Councillor Nation's motion, but I probably don't support the blanket approach of a specific time for all letters. We put forward a range of different types of letters. Some are brief, some are quite complex and require staff to really think about the best way of crafting a particular argument, or may have to do some research depending on what comes up in the NOM. So I'm not comfortable with a particular and quite short 4 business days. Particular staff expertise may be required, as I say, research may be required. I would prefer us, if a letter's being put forward as a notice of motion, if it's time sensitive, I would much prefer us to build a deadline into the, or an expectation around the time frame into the particular notice of motion to give officers and the mayor or whoever's going to sign the letter, because sometimes it's the CEO, the expectation, and that can be dependent on the type of issue, can be dependent on what the letter, whether there's an election or whatever the particular deadlines, whatever might contribute to that deadline. With respect to point 2, so all of the correspondence is actually already on the website. So it's in the governance page, and it goes back some years. So all of the letters are there back to 2019 from the notices of motion. So the ones that have been sent recently, in fact, the most recent one probably hasn't, but the welfare of racing and post-racing greyhounds is there. So it's very up to date. I'm not sure there's any need to duplicate that through a quarterly report to council. It's already on the website. And I understand that the correspondence that received back, some of which is there, and I understand there's some updating to do for some of the recent ones, but it's all there. And a list of outstanding notices of motions or notice of motions, well, we have that. Councillors have access to that. Whether or not we want to include that on the website, I might be supportive of including it on the website, but again, I don't think there's any need for it to come in the form of a report. We've had a very long meeting tonight. Officers are writing lots of reports. I don't see the need for duplicating that in a report. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Eyes. Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Councillor Sharp.
Thank you, Mayor. Just quickly, look, I'm happy to support this motion. I think certain issues have been flagged, if I could use the word flagged, by Council Nation with regards to some notice of motion letters not being sent and then subsequently sort of missing the mark because they haven't been sent out on time. It doesn't, I'm not going to go down the track of saying who or however or whatever was at fault. Suffice to say that there is an issue, and if there's an issue with something, councillors will always try to address it, particularly when it relates to decision making and us wanting to just get basic letters out, I guess. So I'm certainly, I don't think 4 days for officers to draft letters, and the CEO has mentioned that is not the problem. So, and 4 days for the mayor to sign and distribute. Look, everything's on email now. It's not like snail mail where you potentially have to come into the office to view everything. Everything's on email. Everything's electronic signature pretty much too. So I don't think it's a hard task. I think that we really do need to be mindful, because it could happen to any of us. We could put through a notice of motion and expect the letter is going out in a timely fashion, and it doesn't, and we only find that out when it's too late. It might not go for 3 months potentially, and what's the point in us all sitting around making a decision if a letter isn't sent out that we just expected would be as a matter of course. So certainly happy to support this. I don't know what the fuss is about really. Like I said, we have policies for smaller things than this, and this isn't even asking for a policy, just a process. So happy to support. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sharp. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Byrne.
Thanks, Mayor. I will. And I agree with a lot of the things that have been said around the table. I was obviously mayor last year and obviously understand the process in terms of how it worked and how it broke down sometimes. Sometimes whilst it might seem like it's just writing a letter, often it will go to a manager, get signed off by the director, get sent through the advocacy team, get checked off by them, get sent through the CEO, get checked off by the CEO, come through to council support, then eventually at some stage potentially land on the mayor's desk, and then the mayor of the day can choose to make any adjustments if required or go back for further information. I don't have any issues with the top, and obviously that process can break down at any point within that cycle, which is what had happened, which is why a new process got put into place. And then I do think that it was better. I think there was one that got lost between, I don't think it's relevant where it got lost, but got lost at some point, and I wasn't able to sign something that I didn't have, and I didn't keep a register of which ones I had and hadn't. So probably something to take note of. But I think that that's potentially a realistic time frame. I think that if we're committing to a process, I think there it'd be good to try to stick to it with the thought that occasionally there might be a reason when you can't. And I don't think the mover of the motion would have an issue. I don't think any councillor around the chamber would have an issue if it's something that's particularly complex. If there was a courtesy note to councillors saying, noting that there was a notice of motion moved for a particular letter, but due to X, Y and Z, it won't be sent out for an extra week. I don't think there will be anyone would have an issue with something like that. I would be surprised. And so I think that this is more of a guide of which, hopefully can happen. I think the other safety net that can occur is that with notice of motions, if a letter needs to be written, and this is probably something that I learnt from my notice of motion last fortnight, is that putting a date in of when it needs to be sent is also another way around it. In regards to the second point, bringing a quarterly report, I take note of what Councillor Isa mentioned, that a lot of it's on the internet anyway. I suppose one of the positives of having it come, either way, I'm mindful of the extra officers' time to be able to create a report, but it might give an extra opportunity, especially if it's an advocacy reason, to be able to come back into the chamber for some of these responses to see where we've landed. So there could be a positive of that. I suppose that's where I'm thinking of that, but overall I can see that letters can be, whilst it might just seem like a letter, they can, they're official documents that we send out that we try to get traction on, and it's something that we need to try to improve on, and which I'm sure everyone is. So I think, unless there's a particular more debate coming, that I'll probably be supportive of this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Byrne. Councillor Adams, you're the only councillor who hasn't spoken. Would you like to speak? No. Councillor Nation, as there was dissent to the motion, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Thank you, everyone, for your input. Just 3 points. In regards to the time frame, Councillor Byrne, you're spot on. We commit to a process. There may be letters that require greater research, and that's understandable. I guess committing to a process is a default best practice that we're trying to achieve, and at least we know that that's what we're aiming for. And should time periods blow out a little bit, so be it. The 4 days is what the organisation, I believe, has committed to, and the organisation has said that that's the process at the moment, their internal process, so I think 4 days is reasonable. The part on point 2, and I just had a look at the governance page then, I actually got the lovely screen of death that comes every time you try to click through on different things on Moonee Valley website. That's actually... when I was clicking through the one of the notice of motions. The good thing about a quarterly report, and yes, reports create extra work, but there's 2 benefits of a quarterly report. One, it actually means that those checks and balances are done by the officer, by the organisation, to make sure everything is up to date, because it has to be on the meeting agenda. But also, I see agendas and minutes as being, I guess, the public record. So while we do upload things to websites at times, and I'm not sure if we do the correspondence back. No, there we go, lovely screen of death again. That agendas and minutes are the public record. So if we're writing letters...
30 seconds, Councillor Nation, and I might ask would you like a time extension or a pause to bring up the...
No, I'll just take the 10 seconds you stole off me.
No worries, please go.
If they're on the public record in agenda or minutes, then at least they're there. The letter, the correspondence back, and the outstanding motions. And I guess that again doesn't mean that they might or might not have been uploaded on the website. My final point, I don't know what it is. You can have that 10 seconds, Mayor, because I can't remember what it was. But I'd appreciate Councillor's support here.
Thank you, Councillor Nation. I will put that to the vote. All those in favour? That is Councillor Adams, Councillor Bedio, Councillor Byrne, Councillor Nation, Councillor Sharp, Councillor Sypek. All those against? Councillor Isa, Councillor Tyson. I declare that motion carried. Item 11 on the agenda is urgent business. Councillors, do we have any urgent business? No. We now move on to item 12, confidential reports. The next item of business is confidential reports. And we have 4 listed on the agenda this evening. 12.1 and 12.3. The first is notice of motion number 2022/28, private public partnership, and 12.3, property matters. Item 12.1 and 12.3 are considered confidential under the terms of Section 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020, as they contain information relating to A, council business information, being information that would prejudice council's position in commercial negotiations if prematurely released, as it contains confidential commercial information. 12.2, Building Blocks Partnership Memorandum of Understanding. Item 12.2 is considered confidential under the terms of 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020, as it contains information relating to G, private commercial information, being information provided by a business, commercial or financial undertaking that I, relates to trade secrets, 1, that relates to trade secrets, and 2, if released, would unreasonably expose the business, commercial or financial undertaking to disadvantage, as it contains private commercial information. And 12.4, endorsement of CEO's application onto an external board. Item 12.4 is considered confidential under the terms of 3(1) of the Local Government Act 2020, as it contains information relating to F, personal information, being information that which, if released, would result in the unreasonable disclosure of information about any person or their personal affairs, as it contains an officer's personal information. Councillors, I need a motion that Council resolves to close the meeting to the public pursuant to Section 66(2) of the Local Government Act 2020 to consider the aforementioned items. Councillors, do I have a mover? Councillor Nation, and do I have a seconder? Councillor Adams. I'll put that to the vote. All those in favour? And that is carried unanimously. This is where we say goodnight to those watching the meeting on the live stream and in the public gallery. Thanks for your interest in tonight's meeting, and have a good rest of your night. Thank you.